I'm standing in the courtyard of the Chimela Biology Research Station, which is a division of the University of Mexico. And if you are a Theraphosid researcher, this area is a seriously important region. Now you're thinking, why? Well, it's famous for two reasons. Now, first of all, just a K down the road, Peter Klaas first found the type material of Brachypelma klaasi some 30 odd years ago. And it's also, even one could say, even more important because in this region took place one of the really first class Theraphosid biology papers, and it was by a Mexican researcher called Marfa Yanez. So we are now going into these hills in search of the spider in both the paper and the spider that Peter Klaas collected all those years ago, Brachypelma klaasi. But before we do so, I want to take a quick look at the significance of the research undertaken in the late 1990s by Marfa Yanez and Arturo Locht. Now, the pair of them worked together for a couple of years. Arturo Locht essentially handled the taxonomy and Marfa Yanez handled the behavioural and biology side of the papers. Now, I can't tell you how significant this research is in relation to arachnohistory, because at this point we begin to see a sharp movement away from Euro-centred research to young Mexican researchers operating out of usually the research centres in Mexico City, undertaking their own biological work on the genus Brachypelma. Significant stuff, guys. So, let's get back into the field. And on the way out we spotted these guys, Spanish daggers. Now these are wasps with attitude. A timely reminder that when you're searching for tarantula spiders, you never ever disturb one of their nests, because if you do, then all hell breaks loose. When you step out of the research station, you are faced by rolling forest carpeted hillsides, threaded by a multitude of narrow little troughs, any one of which can play host to a Brachypelma tarantula spider. And sometimes you can spend the whole day searching and find nothing. And other days you can be very, very lucky indeed. That morning, within 10 minutes of setting out, Stuart spotted this burrow. Now we've had to swap because Stuart is left-handed, which means that if we've been tickling, he'd been blocking the camera. It's very tight scenario. We're on a pathway, forest pathway. It's very difficult to get. Here she comes. Here she comes. She's coming right out. Once we've secured our Brachypelma klaasi, we now need to film it. This is going to involve countless photographs and a multitude of video clips, all of which can be made easier by a cooperative tarantula. As you can see, there's a leaf in the wrong position. Guy is one of the fussiest spider photographers I've ever come across.
Well, I've seen so many pictures of spiders that people take in the wild, and basically like this. So the spider's now settled itself down, but that's no good for a photograph. Its knees are around its eyes, you can't see that. You want the carapace as clear as possible. You want the legs in a nice even arc around it like this. So that's why I think it is worth spending a bit of time getting the spider in a good position. Why have 200 bad photographs when you could just have one perfect one?
Now, after we finished filming the close-up scenes, a young Mexican researcher wandered over and asked Guy this question about tarantula spiders. Now, the camera happened to be accidentally rolling, and I've decided to use this very interesting clip about urticating hares.
Are some species easier to work with than others?
Yeah, definitely. The ones from Central South America, a lot of them have what we call a patch of urticating hair on the abdomen here. You can. It's quite hard to see it, but it looks more or
They're
like
longer.
velvet. No, it's not the long hairs, it's all the dense dark hairs which are at the back there. And if you look at those hairs under the microscope, they're heavily barbed, and they're designed as the first line of defense from the American ones. So that's why these ones are less defensive. So we never call tarantulas aggressive, because they'll only defend themselves if you sort of interact with them first. So if you grab a spider, if you start poking it too much, it will defend itself. So the American ones will kick these hairs off. There's a bit of a myth that they can fire the hairs, but it's all to do with the larger spines on the back legs, which scrape these fine hairs off and create a cloud of defensive hairs around the spider. So if you get these on your skin, it causes a rash and irritation. If you inhale them and they go in your eyes, it can be quite a serious allergic reaction to it. So for that reason, that's their first line of defense. That's why the Central South American spiders are less defensive. Wow!
I'm sorry. Well,
So we're rounding off this particular shoot. We've spent a busy day, and she's been an absolute gem. We've been working with her an hour and a half now, got an awful lot of footage, which is going to be a joy to look at. Now, I was last here walking down these steps 10 odd years ago, aka with Dr. Stuart Longhorn and a Mexican biologist called Roberto Rojo, and we couldn't find any. I just, we spent the whole day scouring these hillsides with a number of other Mexican biologists as well, and we found not a sausage. So she must have been a young spider then. We must have literally walked down these stairs, stepped over her burrow, missed it, and she must have seen our backs as we headed off down that staircase, down the trail. So we've returned 10 years later, and now I have her in my hand. And what a worthy spider she is. She's absolutely beautiful. Brachypelma klaasi. Again, remember I told you, discovered by Peter Klaas, who was one of the top tarantula collectors 25-30 years ago. The guy scoured the planet. He's in amongst the top 5 top traveller collectors, it's as simple as that. And a lot of the most famous spiders you take for granted were actually first of all collected by Peter Klaas, described by Dr. Gunther Schmidt and Krauss in 1994. So, another spider in the bag, so to speak. Now we're going to return her back to her burrow, and there's a tradition in many ways that the person that finds it gets to return it. So Dr. Stuart Longhorn, please come forward, and I will hand the spider over to him, and he will return her back to her burrow. Let me ask Stuart, your spider. Got it? Now guys, did you see her kicking off those hairs? The next day found us outside the reserve filming near a river which is very close to the type location where Peter Klaas first found this spider. And to our surprise, just up the road, alongside a track, we discovered in the long grass this young lady. Okay, now every so often we get a complete and utter surprise. Now 10 years ago, me and Stuart were searching for Bungartney, and we found a female on the road, and we were totally, utterly bemused. And while we've been busily filming stock footage of the river, Stuart's been wandering around, and lo and behold, in the long grass at my feet, we've discovered a mature female klaasi. Now, she's just basically wandering around, and we're thinking to ourselves, why are you not in a burrow where you should be at this time of the day? In the evening you should be sitting outside your burrow, but you're now wandering around in thick tall grass at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we're kind of thinking to ourselves, this is a total utter surprise like last time. Now guessing, okay, playing around with ideas, this is the egg laying season. You're now gravid, you're going to produce eggs in the next month or so, you're going to shut down in your burrow. Could it be that unless you're really plump, unless you've actually eaten quite a few grasshoppers along the way, you're not going to actually produce an egg sac? So maybe there's not enough grasshoppers wandering past her burrow. She's now actually actively out there searching for them. She needs to feed. And we know one of the theories about successful captive breeding is when you've mated them, you need to feed up the female. That triggers the egg sac. So are we looking at that, this in the wild? After that clip, Guy did some additional close-up footage, while Stuart was busily collating field, habitat and GPS data. We then released the spider back into the long grass beside the road and watched her scuttle away. Now, I'm sitting on a small track that leads down to the meteorological station at the Chimela Biological Research Station, and we've wandered across this little chap. Now, you can see he's got a marvellous golden carapace, an attractive red rump, but look at these wonderful, wonderful blue femurs. Now, his name is Bonatina cyanofema, and they were described originally by Fabian Voll in 2001. Now, there has been some debate whether this Chimela material is the same material that Fabian Voll described, but I think most people are now concluding it probably is. But as you can see, it's a handsome little spider, and it's the sort of thing one finds in the same territory as, excuse me, Brachypelma klaasi, Brachypelma mori, and probably Baumgartneri as well. But we'll see. And once released, he was very eager to be on his way in search of females. Now, you're never going to believe this, but while we were busily filming the Bonatina male, lo and behold, Guy, my DOP on this project, looked across this little piece of scrub and spotted a burrow underneath the log. He is now going to play with it, and we'll just see what's going to come out. We think it's a Brachypelma klaasi female, not too sure, but sometimes you can get a real surprise and it's a male that emerges. So let's cut in and focus much closer and see what happens. And what became obvious is this is a very, very hungry female indeed. Now, as we are having such difficulty finding any males, I suspect the rainy season arrived earlier. And now come egg sac time and the females need to feed up, there is a shortage of grasshoppers. Now, as the day unfolded and we began to explore the track, it quickly became obvious to us that all of the tarantula spiders that we came across were, to say the least, hungry. Only this mantid appears to have struck lucky. But check this out. 3:30 in the afternoon, I jest you not, what do we find? A tarantula spider sitting outside her burrow. Now, for a spider to do this, we are looking at a very, very hungry spider indeed. Now, some of you have probably wondered over the years why your tarantula spider has got fangs like Count Dracula. Now, you've been feeding it pet shop, locusts, cockroaches and crickets. But in the wild, your tarantula is going to be tackling considerably more formidable fare. This is what you're going to catch if you're a tarantula spider. It's armoured. In order to take it out, you're going to have some seriously big fangs. And this is the sort of stuff that Brachypelma klaasi is probably feeding on. It's got one hell of a kick, by the way. It's just basically stuck its back legs into my finger, which is quite painful. So, now we're going to do something very, very naughty. You know that burrow Guy was filming slightly earlier with a female sitting out? Well, we're hoping, because it's the end of the day and the fact she was sitting out, she must be pretty hungry. So we're going to try our luck and just pop her into the opening of this root and see if we can get her to come out and feed. Now, I'm not going to put my fingers that nearby because you could easily go over the top of the grasshopper and take me out instead. So what I'm going to be using is a pair of rubber tip, okay, tongs. Now, I'm going to hold the wings. Oh, that wasn't a very good start, was it? Try again. Now, I've got the wings. I'm now going to put her into the burrow opening. Let's see what happens. Although initially our grasshopper proved a tad unsporting and declined to be dinner, we did manage to push it down the burrow eventually.
Good enough.
Wow, fantastic. Now, this is absolutely fascinating. What caught my eye as I walked down this track is a touch of white silk. And when we bring the camera lens much closer, you're going to see an exoskeleton on the side there. It's a Brachypelma klaasi exoskeleton. Now, what is really fascinating though is that the actual burrow is not a burrow at all. It's just really a scrape going back under that bit of old root there. It goes back no more than, I'd say, no more than 7 inches. So, what on earth was our spider doing in there? And I think that when we start to investigate this exoskeleton, it's going to be basically the final molt before a male appears. And it's interesting to note that we've been talking to the biologists on this research station, and they're all saying the same thing. The last time they saw them was about a week ago. So I think we are a tad too late. Maybe the rainy season began slightly earlier, because last time we were out here 10 years ago at the same time, the road was crawling with males. We're now reduced to an exoskeleton. So let's go in and get it then. I can see lots and lots and lots and lots of silk, and it's not that fragile. Well, we're not looking at something that's probably that old. That's a surprise. And the abdomen it looks quite soft. Oh, it's a real surprise. Stu, what do you think?
Okay. Yes, so you have to look inside the abdomen. But when they're very dry, it's difficult. But this one's okay. So yeah, that's a male. So maybe matured in there.
So, right, shallow little scrape. I mean, are these guys nomadic? Was the spider wandering around pre-molt? Went into the shallow scrape, silk, let's see, we can see it's all silked up. And then essentially, right, shed its exoskeleton, now mature male, and then wandered off in search of females. But what is really surprising is how small that little cave is. We're not talking about a deep burrow here. One would expect these spiders to be molting out in a burrow they've actually grown up in, not be wandering around choosing a shallow little cave like that for the final molt. Now, that's a real surprise. But before we move on, let's take a quick look at the scientific background of this species. Now, Brachypelma klaasi was first described in 1994 by Dr. Gunther Schmidt and Rolf Krauss, and it was based on a specimen, that's the holotype, female, collected by Peter Klaas in February 1992. The spider was named after Peter Klaas, who, along with Jean-Michel Verdez, was easily one of Europe's top tarantula collectors of that period.